You are listening to a recording of the Facebook Live for the Astro Business Forecast of March. If you want to be live with these forecasts, you can join me in the Facebook group, search for Astrology as a Strategy, and get the live insights, get information, and ask your questions while I am doing the live. Enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Astro Business Forecast of March. And this month is, there are a lot of extreme. The word that comes to me is it's like a ping pong, which if you have been to Bangkok, ping pong has a very different connotation to it. I won't go into that. So it is like the energy is like a ping pong. It goes back and forth and back and forth. So I wanted to provide some bigger context of what is happening so that you understand the energies and all the things that are happening right now. Let me pull up my notes so I make sure I don't forget anything. And I forget to mention because it's quite it's a big energy. If you're here with me live, let me know because I'd love to hear if you're with me. And I'm just gonna pull up my notes for March. But before I go into the details, let me just say that the reason why there's such a duality and kind of a ping pong energy is the fact that we have the energy of Pisces. Pisces is soft, is empathic, is feeling the things. Also an energy of unification. While we have that, we are also, we're also moving into harder energy. Mars and Saturn are going to do their thing, which adds intensity to the situation. Now, what happens with the Pisces energy, and I'm not talking about just the season of Pisces that we're in when the sun travels through Pisces. We also have Jupiter in Pisces and we have Neptune in Pisces. Now, Neptune has been in Pisces for several years already, but Jupiter makes a short visit in Pisces. Both Neptune and Jupiter are the ruler of Pisces. Pisces is a very beautiful, gentle energy. At the same time, when it gets too much for Pisces, there is the shadow side where it becomes overwhelmed and things are too much. There's too much going on. So it numbs out. It chooses to completely disengage from reality. Now, obviously, you can see why that is dangerous. The thing that we're seeing happening in the world stage right now is because there is a disconnect with the actual reality. And instead of facing the reality, let's just do whatever we feel like. And that is dangerous for everybody. So I want you this month, before I go into details, before you hear about all of the aspects, I want you to come back to yourself and to start recognizing when you are going into that numbing out energy. When do things become too much and you feel like you need to pull back? I want you to think about it because mostly when we are already on the slope down, it's hard to catch ourselves. But when we're at the top and we feel like we're almost going to tip over, that's the moment you want to catch yourself. That's the moment you want to go, hey, I feel that I am going to slip away. And I want you to think about it now so that in order when the tipping point comes, you can feel it. You know when it's going to show up. So make sure that you're aware of that. When you can lean into that Piscean energy of flow, of surrender, of moving with everything, then it also becomes easier to handle the slightly harder energy. So let's go into the details of March. The beginning of March is relatively calm and smooth. So if you need to get a few things done, allow yourself to do so in the beginning of the month, because the beginning of the month fuels your inspiration. It fuels your artistic gifts. And even if you think you're not artistic, trust me, you are, because everybody has artistic gifts. Let that inspire you. Let that inform you. And your intuition is very heightened during that stage. Today, on Tuesday, we are at the stages of the dark phase before the new moon. So right now it might feel slow, where things are not really moving yet. This is the darkness before the new moon. This is before things are starting to pick up and start to move and change and shift. So tomorrow we have the new moon at 12 degrees Pisces, happening at 6:35 in the evening in Central European time, and at 12:35 p.m. Eastern Central Time. That's a lot of time zones to remember. So this is the last new moon of the astrological year. Remember, Pisces is the last one of the zodiac. This is really about your intuition, your compassion, and it is feeling the feelings. We also have a few really beautiful connections with this new moon, which fuels your drive for innovation. So you might actually have very unexpected things coming on your path that day or around that time. We also have Mercury conjunct Saturn in Aquarius, which also makes sure that you have set the intentions on what is going to support your mental capacity these next few months. And the reason why I say support your mental capacity and think about it now is because when things are going to get more intense, you want to think about it in times where it's still a little bit more smooth, instead of when you're in the heat of the moment, and then usually it becomes a little bit too hard to think about it. So that's something I want you to remember. Then on March 3rd, we have Venus and Mars conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. Now, Venus and Mars are at this tug of war where Mars usually try to win. It wants to rule over the feminine. But I invite you to let those two come into balance, because if you allow those energies to kind of come to equal expression, because the masculine is just as sacred as the feminine. We need both, because if there's only feminine energy, then there's no action, there's no passion. It becomes very dry. But because they're conjunct to Pluto, shadow sides are going to show up, because Pluto loves to transform things, but it also shows up in a power hunger type of way. So trust your inner fire that day, and allow the light then to transform whatever is being shown to you. We have Mars and Venus moving into Aquarius. Mars goes first, and a little bit after that, Venus goes into Aquarius on March 6th. So Mars was taking serious and conscious steps when it was in Capricorn. And now it goes into intuitive power and unusual methods. So it is important that instead of only going with that idealistic view, also keep coming back to practical steps. Venus also finally moves out of Capricorn after 4 months of Capricorn. And it helps to infuse your relationships and your social activities with fortune. Aquarius also cools Venus down, which might result in you have to work a little bit harder on romance and with your loved ones. Now, I just had somebody comment before I went live that this phase right now that we're in feels very much like a Mercury retrograde. Mercury is not causing this, by the way. But Mercury is definitely adding to this. There's not one specific planet that is causing this disillusion, this movement. If we look at the really much larger scales, it was the Pluto Uranus square that we had years ago that now is starting to unfold in things, and because Uranus is involved, quick action was initiated, but the results are felt years after that. So that's like, I'm literally talking about a 20-30 year cycle. At the same time, Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces, what I just mentioned, is this beautiful softness and also clouding of reality that we have. Mercury is racing through the signs. We have Mercury in Aquarius right now. It moves into Pisces on March 10th, and then it goes into Aries. There's really a quick go energy with Mercury happening right now, which also Mercury rules our rational brain. So it's like firing it up in Aquarius, pushing lots of ideas and information on us. And now moves into, and on the 10th of March, it moves into Pisces, which really allows us to let the intuition guide us again. So your mental energy will come down again. Instead of the like high pitch, like, yeah, goes down again, and let the universe inspire you. It's also a brilliant time to do lots of free writing. Just put your hand on paper, put a timer on for 5 minutes and just write, whatever comes up. And if you have nothing coming, just write, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write. And I can guarantee you, the moment you start doing that, inspiration will hit you and you actually start to see and understand, okay, this is what is meant to be said or written. Then on March 13th, we have the Sun conjunct Neptune. Like I said, Neptune is very strongly present this month. That's like a lazy Sunday. The 13th is on a Sunday. And Neptune also helps us to get inspired by art, by movies, by creative projects. So if you had the urge in the past to do something creative and artistic, this is really a beautiful month to explore those gifts. Then mid-March, the energy starts to tip over into a little bit more intensity. There are some smaller aspects that I'm not going to mention here. If you're part of the cosmic confirmation, you will actually get the full lowdown of everything that's happening that week. But around the full moon, that's especially that week is very intense. The full moon is always a peak point in the lunar cycle. New moon is setting up the intentions, moving upwards, and then the full moon is like this explosive energy of release. And if you have children or even like animals, dogs or cats, start to look at them during a full moon. Like I shared yesterday when I was guest teaching in somebody's mastermind, I said, what I always do on a full moon is there are no kids for play dates coming. My kids are, the 3 kids I have are good if they're here, but I'm not going to add any more kids into the house on a full moon. So no play dates in our house during a full moon. And I advise you to do the same, especially this month, because we have the opposition of the sun in Pisces and the moon in Virgo. So the moon in Virgo is happening on March 18th at 27 degrees Virgo at 8:18 in the morning Eastern Central Time. And that will mean on 17th of March in the US. Actually, no, it's 18th of March early in the morning at 2:18 a.m. in the morning. This is a very important peak of release. Very often we kind of build up the intensity and then we're like, suck it up, but you have to let it go. The Virgo new moon is perfect to like let it all go, because the moon is really across most of the planets. We have the sun in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces, Jupiter in Pisces, Mercury in Pisces. The moon is right opposite from that. So there's like this huge buildup of Piscean energy. And then the moon sits right across there on the other side, illuminating all of that. And helping you to see the difference between going with the flow and embracing everything, and the Virgo of trying to control everything, seeing all the details, wanting to have control over everything. This is a really beautiful time to use the Virgo energy to bring all of those dreams and inspiration and artistic influence into practical work. Make sure that you keep contact with your body. Virgo is an earth sign, so coming back to your body, connecting to that, and allowing yourself to expand on that, instead of the Virgo being like, it needs to be like this, trying to control everything while all of the other planets are doing their swim in the waters of Pisces. Let me just take a sip. Like I said, there's a lot of things going on. Then on March 19th, we have Venus squaring Uranus. Now, if you can remember, last year we had the Saturn-Uranus squares. We're not out of that yet because we still have, they're coming close to a square, not exact, in October. So this reactivates the energy of last year. But the interesting thing is we have dealt with it before, but now we're coming from a different perspective. So the squares last year were Saturn, the rules, the restriction, the structures, with Uranus being revolutionary, change, sudden change, rapid change. But now there's Venus over here instead of Saturn. Venus is more soft, but she can be blown away by the Uranian energy. So it can be hard to keep upright when so many things are changing and shifting. So give yourself permission, especially that week around the full moon, around Venus squaring Uranus, to be by yourself and to be okay with not having the answers. Focus on being. Now, I know this maybe is like the hardest things because we're always busy with the doing and with the having. Can we back up and go back to being? That is really, really important. The date after that, on March 20th, we have the sun moving into Aries, spring equinox, and that also marks the beginning of the astrological year. This is taking that deep breath and getting out of that, trying to avoid the reality, and coming into that fiery, passionate, enthusiastic Aries energy. But give yourself a moment to walk before you run, because Aries is the energy of, it comes out of the gate running, ready to go. Especially on that day, on March 20th, give yourself some space to embody that new fiery energy, because it's quite a big transition from the flow state of Pisces, the dream state, to yes, I'm enthusiastic, I have energy, I want to go. Give yourself a little bit of softness to actually go into that. Pluto is also making a harder aspect to this moon, so make sure that you allow yourself not to be too tough on yourself. So the next few weeks are really about action. Be brave and have confidence. So we really jump into the springtime enthusiastically and passionate. Make sure that you watch yourself, that you don't become too competitive, because Aries can be very competitive. There's nothing wrong with some healthy competition, but just don't make sure that nobody suffers because of it, either you or the person you're trying to compete with. Then we have a series of a little bit more intense energies happening the week after that. We have Mercury conjunct Jupiter in Pisces. That's a beautiful, calmer start. Make sure that you listen to the information that you get through your intuition. Listen to that, because on the 22nd of March, we have Mars in Aquarius squaring Uranus in Taurus. I would say take cover if you have a very strong Mars in your birth chart, because this is not a very smooth, sweet aspect. Venus squaring Uranus was already challenging because it really challenged our ability to receive, to connect. Mars is out for war. Mars wants to fight, and Uranus wants to change everything. That's not really a very ideal combination. Just saying it as it is. Don't want to scare you, but this is an aspect I'm not really looking forward to. If there are some serious things that need to happen, try to avoid the 22nd of March, the days before, the days after. Because I mentioned these dates, but remember, it's not like exactly on that day. The moon is the fastest planet in astrology, not just in astrology. It's the fastest moving celestial body that we have. So the moon is more specifically tied to a single day. These aspects are slower moving planets, so these aspects also last a little bit longer. And by a powerful position in your chart, I mean, if you have Mars in a sign that is very aggressive already, that can really trigger your own inner aggression. That can really, I'm just searching for the right words. Words have just left me. I think what I want to leave you with for that day is to be okay with not being okay, because it's intense and it's okay. Make sure you have, at the beginning of the month, make sure you have your resources, make sure you can heal and soothe your nervous system, and give yourself some grace around this, because this isn't an easy energy. We have the day afterwards, on the 23rd, we have Mercury in Pisces conjunct Neptune in Pisces. This also blurs our ability to see the reality. So on top of that hard Mars Uranus energy, we then have Mercury conjunct Neptune, which is like adding a new veil over everything, which doesn't allow us to see very clearly. So think before you act. Don't just say yes to something. Do some research first. And you can always say to people, thank you for the invitation, or thank you for the suggestion. Let me think about it and let me come back to you. That's something I want you to not forget. Then at the end of the month, on the 27th of March, we have Mercury moving into Aries. And that is really, it's like fire in the hole. When Mercury was in Pisces, it was a pause before you spoke up. Aries, there is no filter. It's just like, boom, it just says everything it thinks. So you will speak with more confidence and you're not afraid to say the truth. So if you need to do something that you're a little bit nervous about, use this energy of Mercury in Aries to speak up, to do those things that you feel a little bit shy to do so. Make sure that you do pause every once in a while, because you want to make sure that you don't just speak from that place of enthusiasm without having the backup of what you're actually saying. So make sure that you keep that in mind. Then on the 28th of March, that's the last aspect that I am going to cover, we have Venus conjunct Saturn. And this brings some trust and stability in love. It makes sure that you're more easily can distinguish between who deserves your love and compassion and who doesn't. Because when Mars is going to be conjunct to Saturn, which is in April, the energy will be very different. So let me just put that out there. That's going to be a little bit more intense. So that was what was most important for March. As an astrologer, I feel again, there's like let me just take a sip of tea first. I never want to scare people when things get intense, but I also want to give you a realistic view of what is happening right now. I want to give you the tools and the understanding of how you can set yourself up to go through these intense waves. I personally am looking forward to it because sometimes these very hard, challenging aspects actually help us to get the stagnant energy out of the way, to help reform and reshape and rethink things. So to come back to the comment, it looks like a Mercury, or it feels like a Mercury retrograde. That is definitely influencing. There is no Mercury retrograde, by the way, but that energy that we feel is, there is so much reformation going on right now. Restructuring, looking at things from a different perspective. And that, I think, will even be more highlighted in March to help you to move through that stagnant energy and get rid of what doesn't work anymore. But because these aspects are triggering things from last year, a lot of things from last year might show up again. I think, well, I dealt with that. I was done with that. Well, probably not completely. So give yourself some grace to move through that and to be able to, to get a hold of this. If you want these forecasts and even more detailed, because I left quite a few aspects out because otherwise I'll be here for another 1.5 hours. I talk week to week forecast in my private podcast, the Cosmic Confirmation, where I walk through what is going on in that week. At the beginning of the week, you always also receive an email with the written report. So you also have it written, you can listen to it. And at the end of the week, on Friday, you receive the Cosmic Reflections. And in the reflections, I help you to wrap up the week, tie up any loose ends so that you can set yourself up for success for the week after. We also have a monthly Q&A where you can show up with your own chart, things that are happening in your business, ask me any question, what is going on, and we can address that during the live Q&A. That will help you to really embody the astrology, to live it, to put it into practice in your work. And I'm already getting so many questions or so many messages from people who already signed up who say, this is exactly the confirmation I needed. That's also the reason why I chose for the name confirmation, because that's the thing that I hear the most from everybody. What nice to have the confirmation that this is what's happening. If you want to sign up, I'll put a link in the comments where you can sign up for the private podcast. And I'm really excited to share more in depth with all of you what is going on. Also, the bigger context of the things that are happening on a political stage. I share more of that in the private podcast. So if you want more information, I will post the link in the comments, and I will speak to all of you again very soon.